Hello everybody, Disciple here with Overwatch Curios. Now BlizzCon 2017 and more specifically the Overwatch World Cup have come to close for the year. And while the event was one of the most diverse professional events in terms of team compositions seen to date in Overwatch, there were definitely a few outliers that remained consistent for many teams throughout the course of the event. And one of these heroes, unsurprisingly to us now, but maybe surprisingly in the past or sometime in the future, is Junkrat. Historically underrepresented in professional play, the recent changes made to his kit have allowed Junkrat to finally find a spot in Overwatch's meta as a reliable, high source of sustained damage, capable of securing quick kills and bringing down barriers. Junkrat has always been a popular hero, often just underutilized because of his public image of not being very viable in competitive play. So in the wake of his rise in popularity and power, we wanted to take some time to talk about Junkrat and what he could have been in this video. Junkrat was a character designed from the top down, meaning that concepts for gameplay came before any sort of art was ever created. The developers set out with a singular concept of something they wanted to add into the game, and the rest of the mechanics and story of the character would be fleshed out as work continued on his actual design. Blizzard knew that they wanted a character who used a grenade launcher because they really liked the concept of having a character that could bounce grenades off of walls and into positions that other heroes weren't able to attack at all. The grenade launcher archetype is a pretty staple feature of first-person shooters, and it only made sense for the team to want to add their own version of it with its own unique mechanics to the world of Overwatch. Armed with that singular concept of a grenade launcher character, concept artists began to get to work on ideas for characters that could fit inside the world of Overwatch appropriately. Some of the earliest concept art of Junkrat included depictions of him as a very mutant, alien-looking character, with his arm physically being his grenade launcher. This original concept of Junkrat seems to float or hover around as opposed to standing on his legs, but the darker art style calls back to the early days of Blizzard's Titan project. Meanwhile, other early designs of Junkrat portrayed him as a member of the Los Muertos gang, the gang portrayed in Soldier 76's animated short Hero. This approach is interesting because it would have added so much more to the story of the Los Muertos gang that we currently don't really have in the game. So far, we know Sombra has worked for them previously, however that was likely due to political uprising and not exactly her own personal beliefs. The Los Muertos gang has already been accused of being anti-Omnic, despite an Omnic member appearing in Sombra's animated short, which almost aligns with the Junkrat that we have today, who has a pretty vocal disinterest and disrespect for all things Omnic. The Los Muertos gang seems like it could be an important part of the Overwatch world and story if fleshed out more, however there's little more to go on apart from some graffiti around Dorado, Hollywood, and Castillo. However, there was one strong reoccurring theme in the initial concept art for Junkrat, and that was something that the team continued to explore again and again with different styles and takes on it throughout the development cycle. In many of the original concept images, Junkrat is depicted as a very bulky character in a bomb suit and is heavily armored inside of that bomb suit. Now this is an interesting look at it because it portrays Junkrat as a character who could have potentially been a tank instead of a defensive character. And given this, he could have definitely filled the niche within the tank lineup that's currently left wide open. Reinhardt and Orisa both function as main tanks with shields to mitigate damage and protect their allies from behind the shields. Meanwhile, D.Va and Reinhardt are much more aggressive tanks with high mobility, capable of weaving in and out of a fight quickly and harassing enemies. They both have ultimates capable of repositioning enemies, however both are less effective at mitigating damage than the counterparts. Zarya of course plays as a hybrid form of tanking and support with her bubbles, and Roadhog focuses on self-sustain and a large health pool while providing little to allies in terms of actual support and dealing a lot of damage himself. The bomb suit Junkrat, on the other hand, could have filled a niche that isn't currently seen in the tank lineup we have today: area denial. Grenade spam is visually threatening to enemy teams since nobody really wants to walk directly into avoidable damage, but also the ability to bounce grenades off of walls and into unseen terrain, which allows Junkrat to control space directly and flat out deny space to enemy teams at times, could be very cool on a tank character who don't normally have that kind of range. These early iterations of bomb suit Junkrat give off feelings of a bulky, highly armored frontline tank who could control space in a way that none of the current tanks in Overwatch can, and clear some room for his allies to maneuver in. In all of these designs of the bomb suit Junkrat as well, his suit is just a plain military green with evil looking cosmetic adjustments to his armor, or even an interesting spin on the chain chomp as a heavy metal diver's helmet. What's clear even from the beginning is he was always intended to be this chaotic evil character or vigilante, just absolutely hellbent on destruction and blowing things up. Now, as design continued, the Overwatch team decided that being able to see the characters' faces was important for allowing players to connect more personally with the heroes, so these decorative helmets that bombsuit Junkrat wore were removed, and instead would show a very monstrous person underneath the bombsuits. In many of these, he seems less human and almost out of the world, and unfitting to an extent with which Overwatch has today. It wasn't until work was also underway with Roadhog, the New Zealand turned Australian Junker, the development team considered adding Junkrat as a companion of Roadhog and fleshing out a character around the story of the two companions in this irradiated wasteland shattered completely by the Omnic Crisis. Junkrat slowly transitioned into a much more human form, losing his bomb suit and monstrous appearances, and instead being portrayed as this maniacal evil genius or lunatic, depending on your point of view. His physical model became much smaller, and he took on a very dusty and tattered appearance, with shredded clothes and dirt and what's probably gunpowder covering his body. However, one thing that carried through from all these previous concepts is this rocket on his shoulder, which we've yet to even talk about. Indeed, Junkrat's first ultimate was instead a remote-guided rocket fired from his shoulder that Junkrat could steer and manually detonate when ready. In fact, in his earliest form, his detonator wasn't attached to the concussion mines he has now, but was instead solely for the detonation of this guided missile. Now, this missile functionally performed much like his Riptire does today, however there's one obvious distinction and advantage that this rocket has over the Tire. The rocket can be steered on all planes instead of being bound to the ground and jumping up walls. This meant that overall, Junkrat was much more powerful in development, as he could directly control the location of his rocket at all times, including on the Z-axis. This mechanic would even soften the blow from one of his hardest counters, Pharah. Junkrat struggles against the Skyborn Pharah due to how hard it is to successfully land grenades against her. While a second charge of Concussion Mine has since helped on that front since it's much more reliable to hit, being able to control a Riptire type of ability on the Z-axis would have allowed him much more counterplay and undeniably made him an even more potent threat on the battlefield. In the end, however, the development team decided that this guided missile was just too confusing in-game to make it alive. For example, it's possible Junkrat could do things with it such as hide it in the corner of a ceiling, only to unleash it from above seconds later. Allowing unlimited Z-axis control definitely would make it hard for players to have any sense of counterplay against an ultimate that can potentially kill entire teams if allowed to reach its intended destination. And while that might sound a lot like the problems we have with the Riptire today, you can still play around it a bit by distancing yourself from any walls, since the Riptire is limited by climbing up walls only, so you could try and put a lot of space between you and shoot it out of the ground once it's coming towards you. Now, because of this change, they grounded the missile to an extent and opted instead for the Tire, which fits aesthetically and thematically with Junkrat, as someone who excels at crafting explosives from what junk he can find across the wasteland of the Outback. Getting the chance to take a look at these top-down characters is a fun and unique experience for us. On one hand, it's a great means of getting insight into the development process and how singular ideas can take hold and develop into an entire character. On the other hand, it's also an opportunity for us to see the artistic evolution and depiction of a character and see exactly how much can change for any given character throughout the duration of the development process. It's quite possible we could have ended up with an alien Junkrat, or even a tank classified Junkrat, wading into battlefield with a gigantic bomb suit. And of course, we can't forget the possibility of fleshing out the storyline of Los Muertos gang from Mexico. In the end, we'll have to settle for the Junker himself and hopefully get to see the story of both the Junkers and Los Muertos gang fleshed out in the future heroes down the road. Now, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It's a lot of fun for us to make videos like this based on the information we've gleaned from BlizzCon, or of course from the Blizzard Museum that they have featuring Overwatch currently at the headquarters. We're lucky enough to live in Southern California, so we get to stop by the headquarters, and we got an awesome tour through the museum where we got so much new information for videos. If you guys like videos of this nature, then definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have so many of them coming out, and we've had a ton of them come out in the past, talking about different heroes and their origins, as well as a lot of awesome stuff that's been changed or canceled in the past to bring us the Overwatch that we have today. It's super fun for us to talk about this, and we have plenty more of these coming in the future, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel and see the next hero that could have been. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.